morning, everyone. This is John with Gun.Deals. Today, we're going to be looking at some of the best brands and manufacturers of handguns for the beginner. Basically, if you're looking for your first handgun, or maybe a handgun for a little bit more serious of a reason, what are the best manufacturers out there currently, and which ones do I recommend for you? Now, of course, a list like this is going to be almost entirely my opinion based off of my own personal experiences with various handgun manufacturers, and by virtue of being my own personal experiences, there are going to be some manufacturers that are completely omitted from the list just because I haven't personally tried them out, and there'll be some that I can't fully recommend but can partially recommend because I haven't tried their entire lineup. So with that out of the way, if there's anything that I missed and anything you would recommend over or switch out some of these brands with, go ahead and comment those in the comments down below. And of course, like, share, and subscribe while you're here because that is free and does help us out quite a bit. Now, starting out with a few honorable mentions. These are brands that I definitely can recommend, but can't necessarily recommend everything in their lineup because, again, I haven't tried all of them. The first one is actually going to be SIG. Now, that may be very surprising that it's not a full recommend, and the reason for that is I have only tried the P365 and the 365 XL. I haven't tried any of their full-size handguns, so I can't really comment on them or recommend them. However, if you are looking for a micro carry 9mm handgun, the 365 is a great little handgun, basically the gold standard of that micro 9mm style. The 365 XL is just a little bit more 365, so if you like the 365, you'll probably like the 365 XL. And then, of course, now they have the X Macro, which is like a full-size, slim 9mm handgun, which seems very intriguing, but I haven't shot it, so I can't really comment on it. So while they might not be my favorite, the 365 XL certainly performed very good. You can even find them at fairly affordable prices depending on where you're looking. But again, I can't recommend the entire SIG lineup because I have not tried any of their full-size handguns, which might sound a little bit odd, but I haven't tried them, so I can't recommend them one way or the other. However, 365 XL, maybe not my favorite, but they perform very well. Next up on the list of partial recommends, that is actually going to be CZ. Now, I personally have only shot the CZ P10C and P10F, both of which I liked quite a bit. However, I really haven't shot them all that much. Out of the box, they do seem to provide a very high value. They're not particularly expensive. The ergonomics are very good. The sights are very good. Out of the box, the triggers are very good. They're almost better than Glock in every way, just a little bit, for a little bit less money. But again, I haven't tried them enough to fully recommend them. However, people that like CZs tend to love CZs and defend them quite a bit. They are popular enough that you can find any aftermarket accessory that you want. Not quite as popular as some of the other handguns on the list, but people that like CZs love CZs, and I can see why. Again, out of the box, good ergonomics, good trigger, good sights, good value as well. And again, the reliability for the little that I've shot them has been very, very good. The aftermarket is decent as well. But again, I can't fully recommend them. Now, what may be a surprise to some of you is the first manufacturer that I can recommend, the lowest on the list, is actually going to be Glock. The reason for that is Glocks are not particularly a good value anymore in the marketplace. They really haven't innovated in the last 20 years or so. However, while I can fully recommend them because they are still exceptionally reliable handguns, I think there are other manufacturers on the market pushing the market a little bit further, doing more, and in a lot of cases providing a better value as well. Now, this, as you see it, this is the first real handgun I ever bought. This is a Glock 17 Gen 3 that has been fully modified out, aftermarket slide, ported barrel, so on and so forth, aftermarket trigger. This is completely almost not a Glock at this point. The only thing that's stock is really the frame. Now, Gen 5 Glocks out of the box are very good. They have updated a little bit. The triggers are fine. The sights are mediocre plastic sights. The grips are a little bit better on the Gen 5. It's very, very iterative improvements, not leaps and bounds like some of the other manufacturers are. Now, the reason why I would still recommend a Glock is because you can get a Glock 26, Glock 19, Glock 17, Glock 43, if you will, if you're looking for a slimmer Glock, and you can get a high level of performance at any size, and they are, at least when unmodified, extremely reliable handguns. They are still, that is one of their best selling points, is they're not too expensive, anywhere from $600-ish new, maybe $400 on the used market. MOS models, another unfortunate thing about Glocks is to get an optics cut Glock, you need to get the MOS model, which is usually about $100 premium, Or because it's a Glock and the aftermarket is insane, you can go ahead and pick up basically any aftermarket slide that you want. So in terms of reliability out of the box, Glocks are still top tier in that regard. There may be a few manufacturers out there that compete very close in terms of reliability. I don't know if there's a lot of polymer framed striker fired handguns that are better than Glocks in terms of reliability, but certainly now there are a lot of brands that compete very close in terms of reliability. What holds Glocks back for me personally is that their value, their performance is decent, but certainly not the best on the market. If they could maintain the reliability and increase the performance, ergonomics, maybe even lower the price a little bit as well, I think that they could truly be a top tier handgun, not only in terms of reliability, but also in terms of value. They're not the easiest guns to shoot in the world. However, if you do pick up a Glock like I did, the first thing that I learned to shoot with was basically this Glock 17 here. If you learn to get good with a Glock, you will basically be good with every handgun on the market. And if you're decent with a Glock, you'll probably even have better luck with other guns that provide you a little bit better features, ergonomics, triggers, grips, sights, so on and so forth. Now, this may be another surprise as well, but moving up the list from Glock is what I consider to undoubtedly be the best value on the market, especially if you are a new-ish, beginner-ish shooter looking to get into a really nice gun. Undoubtedly, the best value on the market currently is Canik. Now, Canik has improved quite a bit since they have originally come into the US market. They are manufactured overseas. However, because of that overseas manufacturing, I believe they're manufactured in Turkey, they do have a insane value. On top of that, the ergonomics are very good. The aftermarket is getting better every year, and the triggers, sights, and a lot of the features as well are top tier. Out of the box, Caniks generally have fantastic ergonomics, fantastic triggers, good sights. Most of the new ones are also optics ready as well, which is a feature that you're not going to get on a Glock unless you go with an aftermarket slide or, of course, the MOS version, and you're going to be paying a premium for that. On top of that, Canik has such a wide variety of options on the market, everything from the MC9 to like the Meta SFX or some of the steel competition guns that they have as well. And even their more expensive guns are not particularly expensive when compared to their competition. You can find Caniks in the $300 to $500 price category that have the same feature sets and performance as $1,000 handguns. Now, some of the downsides of Caniks are going to be that you are going to run into more issues in terms of manufacturing and reliability. Now, it should be stated that every Canik that I've shot to date has basically been perfect with 115, 124 grain ball. However, I have much less experience and much less rounds on Canik than I do on Glock. So I would never insinuate that Caniks are better than Glocks in terms of reliability or long-term durability. But again, currently my experiences have been very good, and you are going to be seeing some more Caniks popping up on the channel shortly. Some other downsides is you aren't going to have the same level of aftermarket as you are going to have with Glock. The optics mounting system, well, it does come with an optics mounting system. Usually it's for the smaller cut optics. Some of their newer models have updated that a little bit. But again, there are little quirks here and there. The magazines are a little bit more expensive, though they are still plentiful and you can find them. However, they usually start at probably about $40 a magazine versus like $20 a magazine for Glock. And some of the aftermarket cheap Glock magazines you can find for dirt cheap, which is a nice feature if those magazines aren't quite as reliable. But if we're to compare the out-of-box performance of Canik versus Glock, the Canik is going to win all day, every day. You're getting better sights, better triggers, better ergonomics. Now, it's not going to make you a better handgun shooter, but it is going to be easier to master than something like a Glock. If you're great at shooting Glocks, you're basically going to be great at everything else. If you're great at shooting a Canik, well, Canik is a great gun, at least in terms of its raw performance. So maybe transitioning to a little bit worse of a gun might be more difficult versus if you start with a harder gun, master it, and then move on from there. Now, moving on to my number one pick for handgun manufacturers. This is a brand that I always think about when I think about buying my first real handgun, the Glock 17 Gen 3. And if I could go back, I would have picked a Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0 instead. Now, my reason for that is because every time I shoot an M&P 2.0, I absolutely love it. Anything from the compact all the way up to the 5-inch version, every single one has been fantastic. I love the triggers, I love the sights. Ergonomics are, in my opinion, the best. They usually come with the most aggressive grips as well. And if you're not looking for something full size, I've shot the original Shield, the Shield Plus that we see here, and the Shield Plus Performance Center, all of which have been fantastically reliable and very good performers as well. Now, you might argue that Canik has a little bit better trigger, so on and so forth, but you're probably never going to argue that a Canik is more reliable than a Smith & Wesson. Now, the M&P 2.0s are probably my favorite full-size, all-around gun when we factor in price to performance, reliability, triggers, ergonomics, all of those sorts of things. I think that the Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0 is my current best pick. Almost every Smith & Wesson that I've shot, I've really enjoyed. The only one that I really had any major issues with was the CSX, though I think I reviewed that very early on in its life, and I think since then they've updated and fixed some of those issues that I had. Even so, again, the Shield Plus Performance Center, M&P 2.0, I think they're all fantastic handguns. The optics cut system that they have is better than Canik and certainly better than Glock as well. And on top of that, they're always updating the model line and coming out with new models, which means that their older models almost always go on sale. So I think the last M&P 2.0 that I bought for like $440, which is right in the same ballpark as Canik, but in my opinion is going to be a little bit more reliable. I like the grips personally a little bit more. They do have a little bit more aggressive texture, which I personally like. The sights work good. The optics mounting system will take basically any of the major pistol dots on the market. And on top of that, the triggers for me, I like even the old curved triggers. I know some people don't. Now, of course, the new triggers that Smith & Wesson has come out with are also very good. This is a Shield Plus. This one here has probably about 1,000 rounds on it and has broken in quite a bit since I initially had it. Initially, it was pretty heavy, probably 6.5, 7 pounds. Now it's down to probably 5.5 to 6 pounds. A little bit crisper, a little bit nicer. It has a short take up, hard wall, really nice crisp break, short, force, tactile reset, feels very good, and you're right back on the wall again. So overall, I think Smith & Wesson is my #1 pick if I was going to recommend a brand for you. And then if I was going to say if you're on a bit more of a budget, just go with the Canik, because again, you're still going to be getting a very high level of performance with the Canik. And then if you're looking for aftermarket support and all of the options possible, or maybe just a dedicated duty gun, then I would maybe go with Glock, because again, Glocks, at least from the factory, are incredibly reliable and they're good enough in terms of performance. And again, if you get good with the Glock, you'll be good with basically everything. So there are my top 3, Smith & Wesson, Canik, and Glock. I don't really think you could go wrong with either of them, again, depending on what sort of role you're going to be putting those handguns into. And now, again, there are so many handguns that I have not personally shot, brands, manufacturers, models, so on and so forth. So go ahead and comment your favorite, your best picks in the comments down below. Let me know how wrong I am, or let me know if you somehow agree with me as well. But with all that out of the way, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Let me know what you think of the video in the comments down below, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.